An introduction to Revit Architecture 2024. Here we'll be getting started using the user interface. Some of the things that we would like to learn are the parts of the user interface. We have to pay attention to the vocabulary so that we can all be on the same page when we're talking about a particular function. We want to learn to use the application menu, learn how to sketch a circle, and learn the architecture toolbox and locate the user interface on and off switch. In operating Revit architecture, it effectively depends on picking the correct tool for a particular task. When you first open a project, you'll go up the upper right hand of the Revit homepage, and the Revit button will be available. The application appears at the very top of Revit architecture interface and contains the drop-down menus with names. So when you do the drop-down, you get a couple of different options. You can create a new project, you can open, you can save your project, or you can save it as something else. Sometimes you want to have more than one copy. And then there's numerous other things that you can do when you create the Revit file. To open a project, whenever you start the Revit Architecture 2024, recent file appears on screen. If we're just opening up for the first time, you don't get those recent files because you're brand new. And you usually start off with the new and project, and then you set the parameters, which we'll discuss later. The Revit architecture interface will appear and you'll be ready to work. Once inside the Revit project, more projects can be created or opened from the application menu. The application menu, you'll start with new project to bring up the new project dialog box shown here. And in the project dialog box, select the C file program data, Autodesk, Imperial templates. But really, you'll be setting up, your templates will already be set up for you. This is a quick schematic of what the Revit page looks like when you open it up. And these are the parts that you'll need to memorize should there be a test forthcoming about the specific names of these buttons. Let's quickly go through the tab file, which allows you to go to several different places. The quick access toolbar is this entire strip that has many functions on it: copy, print, 3D. And then there are ribbon tabs. Revit is composed of a lot of different ribbons. You can select different ribbons. As you choose these little file buttons here, a new ribbon will appear. There's the application title bar, which shows where you are, what particular version of Revit you're working with. This is the help desk center right here. So if you type in any word that you might need, like how do I make a line, you can type it in there and you click that, and Autodesk will answer your question. And this is part of the info center up here. You'll start to notice that all of these functions are kind of grouped together in different areas. Part of the ribbon is the panel and the tool. This is where we spend the majority of our time in this class, is with a wall, door, window, and component applications. Be sure you have these two parts. This is called the Properties palette, and this is called the Project Browser. Missing one of these, you will not be able to complete your task. You need to have both of these windows available to you to have a good AutoCAD drawing. Below, there's sometimes overlooked is the view control bar, but there are several functions here that are very important. And section toggles. Context menu allows you to zoom in and out, and the navigation bar allows you to move around. So as long as you remember the names, we'll come back and further review these applications. The toolbar menu interface, home toolbar. This is the one space, let me quickly talk about up here, that has now blown up. And these are the things that we start out with when we're doing architecture. We're going to go to the Architecture tab, and we'll have options of a wall, door, window, component, column. The first thing you ever start with in Revit is the wall. So if you can find your architectural wall, half the problem is there, and then all these other things go to embellish that wall. The architecture toolbar allows access to most of the build tools. Like I said, we'll be hanging out here, and we'll be working with these components. Other things you might consider are using stairs, and you can have a grid and model line. Did you know that there's a little section in Revit that actually you can replicate what you do in AutoCAD by drawing with very simpler lines? The Annotate toolbar contains buttons for adding two-dimensional information to your drawings. Here's where we can add our dimension scale. We can put a dimension. We can create a cross-section, and we can annotate, which is where this toolbar name comes from. We can add dialogue and text to the objects that we are putting down on screen. An important button to find all the way at the right hand of your screen is called the user interface bar. And you have to make sure that these buttons are clicked in when you need them to be. If you're missing the system browser or the project browser, here's where you would come to turn it on to have it show up again. So please take a little time to find the user interface button. It's on the View tab. I was saying earlier that there's a small part of Revit that you can draw in two dimensions just like you would in AutoCAD, and hence the same icons that you see in the AutoCAD program can be found here. The modified toolbar contains buttons used for editing existing elements, data, systems. When working with the modified toolbar, select the button first and then select the objects you want to modify. That bottom part, the view control bar, shows up at the lower part of your interface, and it's a small bar that runs across here, but it has a couple of interesting features on these buttons. How you can set a scale, click in there. How you can set coarse, medium, or fine viewing of your object. If you choose fine, it takes up more memory and energy, but if you choose coarse, you regenerate a lot faster, so your drawing is faster. There are graphic display options. How do you want to see your model? Do you want just a wireframe, or do you want to see it shaded or more of a three-dimensional object? And then various options for controlling sunlight, for isolating categories, and we'll discuss more about what that means. And we'll go on to part 2.